Welcome to I Love Apes. If you are taking AP Environmental Science and you're looking for a little help, you've come to the right place. We're on Unit 2 Biodiversity, and today we're studying fragmentation of ecosystems, something that will definitely come up on your AP test. So, ecosystem fragmentation occurs when humans take these undisturbed areas and we divide them up. And what we do is we're going to decide we need to build a road through it. And then we said, I might want to set aside some farmland to feed people, and now people need a place to live, so I take some of it and I carve it up and I put in residential areas. So you see what was once this whole undisturbed ecosystem is now fragmented. So in order to understand the negative effects of ecosystem fragmentation, we're going to have to identify a few categories of organisms, and it really helps with this aspect of ecology in terms of how humans impact it. And these concepts will come up a bit on the AP test. So first of all, we're going to talk about generalist species. So a generalist species is basically a very adaptable organism that evolved in unstable ecosystems. So it's able to eat a wide variety of foods. It can hunt and nest in all kinds of different places. It's well suited to unstable and changing ecosystems. And so it won't go extinct when the ecosystem changes. It'll just change its habits to whatever the new ecosystem's conditions are. And they tend to thrive at the edges of ecosystems. So examples would be like raccoons, rats, cockroaches, crows. These things are pigeons. Things that you see living around humans, those are basically generalist species. Specialist species you tend not to see very often, right? And that's because they evolved in very old, very stable ecosystems where they were able to evolve over time to be very highly specialized at being really great at one niche. Sometimes we refer to them as niche specialists. And because of this, they're not very adaptable. So if things change in their ecosystem, they're not really able to deal with it very well. They have very specific feeding behaviors, very specific nesting behaviors. They often have very important symbiotic relationships on which they depend. And so if anything changes in their ecosystem, unfortunately, the fact that they're so specialized has been working for them. Now it works very much against them, and they tend to go extinct. And so these things tend to only live in the core areas of ecosystems away from the boundaries. And these things tend to be like koala bears, pandas, spotted owls. There's quite a few of them out there, but let's just go on with this, all right? Now, the next one is an interesting one, and we call these umbrella species. So if you think about an umbrella, it protects a lot of things underneath it, and it covers a lot of area. So it's a cool term. So the idea is these are organisms that require a large undisturbed area for feeding. And they offer things that have very large body mass, like an elephant or a tiger. They tend to have long lifespans. We're going to learn to call them K-selected species in their next unit. They tend to have very low population densities. There's not a whole lot of them because they require so much area to feed themselves. And as a result, they tend to require very large core areas of an ecosystem in which to exist. And they often tend to be keystone species. They're holding the ecosystem together. They're apex predators, but they can also be things like elephants and other organisms within the ecosystem that play an important role. But the thing they really have in common is that they need a lot of area in which to operate. Now, let's look at the difference between the edge and the core area of an ecosystem. So the edge area of an ecosystem is located within the first 100 meters of, let's just call this the boundary, the true edge. But the edge area is going to be from the boundary in about maybe 100 meters. And why is this an important distinction? Because in this area here, you get a lot of wind penetration, light penetration, the humidity tends to be lower, there's more noise. And in this area here, we find the umbrella species and the specialists just don't do well here. They tend to move away from that and stay in the core area. But what we find, though, is that the generalist species do just fine here. They tend to get out-competed if they move into the core area, but they do very well in the edge areas. So here in the edges, the generalist species dominate, and the core areas, the specialists and umbrella species don't do as well. Because I just said that. Okay, let's just keep going. All right. So if I take an undisturbed ecosystem and I fragment it, let's just think about what's going to happen here. So if you notice here, I have a certain amount of edge area, but when I break it up, I've greatly increased how much of this is edge area and greatly reduced how much of it is core area. So fragmenting it, even though the area itself isn't that different, the area that is core has gone down significantly and the area that is edge has gone up. So what's going to happen is there's going to be a lot more generalist species here than there is here, and a lot fewer umbrella species, which need a large area to operate in, and a lot fewer specialist species. Now, because a lot of human activities like agriculture, logging, mining, home building, they tend to degrade habitat, a lot of nations have taken efforts to try to prevent our actions from completely destroying vital habitats, ecosystems that we consider to be special or threatened. And so land use planners tend to set aside things as nature reserves, wilderness areas, wildlife preserves, national parks, things like that. So we're basically going to set aside land in order to protect biodiversity. All right? And in order to understand how that needs to operate, it's important to understand this concept of island biogeography, which we're going to study later on. But for right now, we're just going to say that it has to do with the size and distribution of these pieces of land. So let's just look at these size and these pieces of land. This one is going to be a better forest preserve in terms of preserving wildlife and species diversity than this one will be, because I just have a larger area. If I have a larger area, I'm going to have more species that can live here. There's going to be more genetic diversity because there's more individuals in each population. I can have the specialist species because there's a large core area here. I can have a larger population of umbrella species than I can have here. So bigger is better in this case. Well, now look at these two. Let's just say that the area, if I count up the area here, let's just say each one of these is 1,000 hectares. So this is 4,000 hectares. This is 4,000 hectares. Well, even though the area is the same, this one is better. And the reason that this one is better is because there's a larger core area and less edge area, so the specialists are more likely to survive here, and the umbrella species are more likely to survive here. It's going to be very hard for those specialists to survive with so little core area. And many times the umbrella species, they can wander beyond the core, but that means they cover these exposed areas where they're more likely to be encountering humans, which often doesn't go well for them. It alters their behaviors. So if this is all we can get, we'll take it, but this would be better. Now, the same thing goes here. If I have these 4,000 hectare areas of land, it would be better to group them together closely than have them farther apart for the reasons I just discussed. Here, it's more likely that we're going to get individuals moving between these areas because they're not exposed for as long in the in-between areas. And that means there's going to be more flow of genetic material between these areas. So it's going to be better for genetic biodiversity. And it's also going to be better for the umbrella species. It's still going to be kind of rough for those specialist core species here, but the other species it might help to preserve. Again, it'd be better to group this way than it would this way, just because the animals don't know which way they're supposed to go. And it's just more likely that they'll cross here, here, and here. Then, if one goes out here, it's like, I don't know where I'm going. This is a terrible world. I'll just go back to where I was. Where here, they're more likely to move between them. And again, it will spread genetic diversity and maybe allow for some of those organisms that need larger areas like elephants and tigers to survive here. Now, one thing we sometimes do is we put in what's called a wildlife corridor. So it's better if I have these two wildlife preserves. Let's just say the area between them is still the same. This one would do better because we've established what's called a wildlife corridor. And we're just saying, look, organisms don't like crossing these open areas. That's when they encounter humans. That's when bad things happen. They get hunted. They get hit by cars. So they tend to be more comfortable and more likely to move between these fragments when I connect them with these wildlife corridors. Okay, well, that's it for fragmentation, and I'll see you in our next episode. Hey, thanks for watching. Listen, if you found this video to be useful at all, I would appreciate if you go ahead and give it a like. If there's something you want to tell me, some kind of feedback or some video you'd like me to make, go ahead and put that in the comment section for me. Be sure to check the description below. I often post the PDF of the document that I use, also practice problems and so on that can help you do better on your AP test. And of course, you know what's coming. More than anything else, what I really need you to do is hit that subscribe button.